in terms of my introduction to it, it was seeing how much I could break things. I loved taking anything apart. So it's like Tamagotchis and like DSs and stuff that me and my sister had. I would just take them apart, just rip out all the guts. And like my family computer, I think I ended up accidentally formatting the hard drive just because I didn't know what I was doing.
So sort of first computer that I had was an old Dell system that my mum had, and I just used to play around on it. And one of her friends was actually a computer science teacher at secondary school, like well before it became a thing. And she introduced me to things like Scratch when it first came out, or I think it was a language called Simple that I can't seem to find any reference to these days. And it just kind of sparked that interest of, if I do any sort of thing here, it can make the computer behave in a different way to what I'm used to. And seeing that ability to manipulate it intrigued me almost.
So my first computer, yeah, it was an Acorn Electron, so not the BBC, but the smaller version of it. And I think what I enjoyed about it was, it obviously, when you started up, just a kind of a basic prompt of text, and you had to do things to make it do something. You know, you had to write some code on it to make it produce something that you wanted to produce. And for me, that production was actually making graphics, really. So actually trying to make graphics on the screen, quite limited, but it was that challenge about how can you make it do something that's interesting and creative.
I think my first computer wasn't mine at all, it was my dad's, and I don't think I could say what it was. To me, it was just slightly off-white box with a screen attached to it. And obviously he had lots of games, he'd let us play on it. And I remember he was always almost like fear-mongering us. It's just like, oh, but it can't be on the internet because we'll get viruses. And if there's viruses on it, it won't work anymore. And we're like, oh, okay, we'll just put in discs then. But then once I got to school, we were given free laptops through a government scheme, and that was my first like personal computer. And that's when I was like, oh, we can make our own games. Like I can install Visual Studio and learn Visual Basic and like make simple like rock, paper, scissors games. That's where it started, and then text adventure. And that's when I started like being interested in it at school as well and learning more about it.
Yeah, so my first computer, at school we had access to a room with a couple of BBC micros in. I remember the BBC TV programme about using these computers and programming them. So I got a ZX Spectrum. And again, like John was saying, the interesting thing was you just turn it on, there was just a command prompt, but then you got magazines with listings in to type in the listing, save it onto cassette, and then you could run it. So I learned sort of programming that way, sort of limited programming, but you learned it from practice. Later on I started writing programs and selling them to magazines. So to go, didn't make thousands that way, but made a bit of money from selling software. And then learning other things like some machine code and programming at a low level, and seeing what you could do with computers. And I kind of got interested in it. So then later on, it wasn't available at A-level at the time, but I did sort of science A-levels, and then decided to come to university and study computer science, and I ended up here.
I think in terms of my introduction to it, it was seeing how much I could break things. I loved taking anything apart. So it's like Tamagotchis and like DSs and stuff that me and my sister had. I would just take them apart, just rip out all the guts. And like my family computer, I think I ended up accidentally formatting the hard drive just because I didn't know what I was doing. So eventually I think it was my parents like, okay, stop destroying all electronically, please. Let us actually teach you how to use it. And that was kind of the introduction of, please stop breaking it, here is how to do it properly. I don't even know what it was years ago, but I think my mum had like a ZX Spectrum or something up the attic. She got out, and that was like the absolute pinnacle of it. But my Game Watches and stuff, they've all sorts of ordered away, and I'll still love it. So.
Coming back to the format thing, we've all done that when we're first. Why doesn't it work?
Yeah. See little grey lines. Oh man, I'm gonna press 100%.
Text.
I think I accidentally put a virus on my mum's laptop. One had to.
Yeah. Dad was wise, just like for you guys until you learn how to use this.
My first computer would have been an Amiga, but like scientist. I've had every pretty much known to man. It's available, probably. For me, it was kind of the point where you were talking Windows like PC or Amiga, kind of like shift in the market. All of a sudden, we bought, surprisingly, like the be-all kind of like you must own an Amiga, and then the whole market, Windows, and it was like, what?
It's like an HD DVD. I mean,
Yeah, I bought the wrong one.
Yeah.
And it was this massive, like back in the day, it probably cost. But it was all about, I mean, you're young, it's learning, kind of get in. You had one, so you kind of like, how do I reproduce what he's got? Oh, wicked. And then games, and then you learn, and then it grows and grows, doesn't it? And then you end up doing a format, see what's gone on. Uh-oh.
I think my first computer was a Windows 7 Toshiba laptop, where the first program that I managed to download on was a typing game. It's called Mavis Beacon typing software. I don't know if anybody has heard of it. Yeah, we used to learn how to type back in school in Ghana. So it's just learning how to type as fast as I can, learn that one. So it was fun, but I ended up breaking the laptop. I ended up breaking it.
Typing too fast.
What did you do to it?
Fell down. I was arguing with my little sister, like my twin sister. So I smashed it. Yeah.
I think every computer scientist has an accidental kill list of computers somewhere in their brain.
Yeah, I've got like precious family memories that are gone, and it's like, sorry, but yeah, it's fine. Shouldn't left me unattended, so.